bring this meeting to order. Stuart City Council special meeting, tentative agenda, Monday, July 13th, 2026, 5 p.m. Council chambers. Need a motion for agenda approval.
Make the motion?
Motion by Russell,
I'll second.
second by Ingers. How do you vote? Cobal?
Yes.
Caps?
Yes.
Ingers?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
All right, number 2, TIF work session. Turn this over to Matt. Before I do so, once we get done kind of with this work session, I will open it up for some questions. So if some people have some questions out there at the very end, we'll open it up in case some folks have some questions. So, okay, I'll turn it over. Matt Funk.
Okay. Purpose of today's workshop, provide background on the proposed travel centers of America redevelopment, review the city's technical engineering, financial, and administrative evaluation, explain the proposed tax increment financing request, discuss the importance of the development agreement before final council consideration, receive council questions and directions regarding the next phase of the project. Workshop is not intended to be a public hearing or a request for final council action. Workshop is intended to summarize the work that has been completed over the past several months, review the technical and financial information that has been assembled, discuss the proposed tax increment financing, and identify the remaining work necessary before final action is considered. I'd like to go over why this project matters. This project represents a considerably more than replacement of an existing convenience store. It proposes the redevelopment of approximately 21.6 acres into a modern travel center with expanded truck parking, fueling facilities, truck repair service, and supporting commercial development. Because of its size, location, and potential investment, this project has required a comprehensive review by city staff, consultants, and partnering agencies. Also, it represents an estimated $21 million in private investment. Current assessed value is approximately $1.3 million. Projected assessed valuation after development is approximately $10.27 million. Retail activity would be additional interest in traveler spending, potential increase in the county's local option sales tax collections, estimated to receive $58,000 in new revenue from project, which is an increased commercial activity. New amenities would be a Travel Center of America, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Jimmy John's, with expanded truck services, and 129 parking spaces for trucks. Location, as you know, it's on the I-80, exit 93, south of Division Street. The location has historically served interstate travelers through the fuel sales, lodging, and restaurant uses. The proposal would redevelop much of the existing commercial area into a modern travel center. The proposed development includes both the redevelopment of the existing commercial facilities and expansion onto adjacent property located west of the motel. This additional land allows the project to accommodate truck parking, expanded fueling, stormwater detention, and other site improvements that could not be achieved within the existing developed area. This conceptual site plan illustrates the overall layout of the project. Beginning on the east side of the property, you'll see the proposed travel center and convenience store. Moving west, the plan includes expanded passenger and truck fueling facilities, a truck repair building, extensive truck parking, stormwater detention, and supporting infrastructure. The additional land west of the existing motel allows these improvements to be accommodated as part of the single coordinated development. The 129 parking, or truck parking spaces is a primary feature of the project. Project encompasses approximately 21.6 acres and includes a nearly 15,000 square foot convenience store, an 11,000 square foot truck repair facility, 129 parking spaces again, and parking for about 100 passenger vehicles. These numbers will help illustrate why this project required a comprehensive review by multiple city departments and outside consultants. Because of the size and complexity of this project, the review extended well beyond the typical commercial development. City staff evaluated engineering, utilities, planning, infrastructure, and financial impacts. In addition, the city worked closely with its engineering consultant, financial advisor, bond counsel, and the Iowa Department of Transportation. Throughout the review process, the objective was to provide the council with the information necessary to make an informed policy decision. One of the first formal reviews of the project occurred through the planning and zoning process. The commission evaluated the proposal, or the proposed site layout, building placement, parking configuration, landscaping, access points, and circulation throughout the development. As part of that review, the commission also considered requests for the specific waivers related to landscaping and sidewalk requirements before forwarding its recommendations to the city council.
Hey, Matt, can you move closer to the microphone or speak up louder because people at home can't hear? Sorry.
I don't have a microphone.
Okay, that's what I thought. Maybe you could announce that. There's no microphone.
Yeah, Matt can't come closer to the microphone.
Try to speak up.
Thank you.
Following the planning and zoning review, the project underwent a detailed engineering evaluation. Staff and the city engineering consultant reviewed utility capacity, stormwater management, roadway connections, grading, and other infrastructure requirements. That review identified the public improvements and utility coordination necessary to support the proposed development and provided the technical foundation for subsequent discussions regarding project cost and public participation. You can see the primary review areas and the traffic and Iowa DOT review. Because of the project's location adjacent to Interstate 80, transportation was one of the most significant aspects of the city's review. A traffic impact study was completed to evaluate anticipated traffic volumes, access to South Division Street, internal circulation, and the interaction between passenger vehicles and commercial truck traffic. Throughout the review process, the city coordinated with the Iowa Department of Transportation regarding access and transportation improvements associated with the development. The projected infrastructure improvements, if funded by the city, are estimated to be at $1.3 million of debt obligation, $900,000 in infrastructure costs tied to 2 traffic signals and sewer relining improvements.
Before Matt moves on, one thing we want to mention, especially with the DOT's traffic study requiring those 2 traffic signals and the sewer relining, especially with this public-private partnership, as that's going to involve some type of cost share with the developer as we're moving forward with discussing this potential rebate. So just keep in mind that that's going to be priority number 1, is if this development occurs, is to prioritize the infrastructure improvements tied to the project. So.
Thank you. Once the improvement needs. The city evaluated the developer's request for tax increment financing. The financial review examined projected property tax revenues, potential reimbursement structures, and the overall fiscal impact of the proposed development. This analysis provided the financial information necessary for the council to consider the request as part of the broader project review. The proposed TIF structure is pay-as-you-go, no general obligation debt, reimbursement from future tax increment only, subject to a development agreement, final terms determined by the city council.
Just to simplify that one more time, so the pay-as-you-go rebate structure, this just means that any type of incentive that would be generated or back to the developer would only be from the property itself and the property valuation of it. It's not going to come from the existing property tax base with the existing obligations that are out there today. So, go ahead.
Thank you. This slide illustrates a simplified form how the proposed pay-as-you-go tax increment financing structure would operate. The developer is responsible for financing construction of the project. After construction is completed, the property is assessed and begins generating property taxes. If a development agreement is approved by the city council, eligible reimbursement would occur only from the new increment generated by the project, and only in accordance with the terms of that agreement. Under a pay-as-you-go structure, reimbursement occurs only after the project is completed, assessed, and generates new property tax income. See why the development agreement matters. While we discussed the engineering review and the proposed financial structure, one important step remains before the council consider final action. Historically, the city has not approved tax increment financing until bond council has prepared a development agreement incorporating the negotiated business terms and legal protections. The development agreement establishes the obligations of both parties, defines project milestones, addresses reimbursement procedures, and provides the legal framework that governs the project throughout the reimbursement period. That is how Stuart has done them historically. The remaining work primarily involves completing negotiated business terms and preparing the development agreement for council consideration. Following this workshop, staff will continue discussions with the developer regarding the remaining business terms. Once those terms are finalized, bond council can work on the development agreement for council consideration. Purpose of tonight's workshop is to prepare the council for the remaining administrative and legal steps before final council consideration.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Before we hand it over to Chip, I think the purpose of Chip's scenario with the presentation is just to go over a few examples, kind of citing the Webster City example where there's a Travel America that has an existing development agreement there, and so we're just going to run through what that would look like for the city of Stuart if we were to model that similar example of a rebate agreement with same developer. But also with that development agreement, again, tonight's focus is simply the TIF application. The next step would be, again, that development agreement, but there are ways for us to kind of protect the city's investment too. Again, mentioning minimum assessed valuation. So before a developer could, let's say, get a certain percentage of rebate, we could set the minimum assessed valuation to where he has to hit $10 million or $10.2 million so that we can essentially fund the infrastructure improvements. Other ways that we can kind of have clawback provisions / ensure that they meet requirements are looking at some of the wage requirements that are with those full-time jobs that are tied to some of the truck repair centers too, is they have to meet those specific wage requirements when they hire those employees, and then they are in access of those specific rebates. So again, the first step is really to go over those examples with Chip, and then after that, we can discuss the development agreement after some of the guidance here from the council this evening. So, Chip.
Okay. So Chip Schultz with Vietnam Financial Advisors. the initial scenario that we have here, which is sometimes impossible to see. So just as a framework starting point, Mr. Singh has entered into a development agreement with the city of Webster City. And just a disclaimer on that, the development costs for different Travel America sites obviously are not all the same. So this is provided as an example of a development agreement that's been approved. But it doesn't necessarily, you can't necessarily apply it here to Stuart because the development costs here are surely different than what they were there. Higher, lower, I don't know. So bottom line, this is a pure TIF rebate mechanism. There are some scenarios in here that do assume a city general obligation bond issue. That, if that were to occur, that is up to the city council. The TIF rebate scenarios just discussed assume just pure TIF rebate supported. So, there's no city bond issue in that scenario for the infrastructure. There are some in here that do reflect that. I just want to mention that. So the economic value, if you apply the far right column, column S, reflects the TIF rebate percentage in the Webster City Development Agreement. It's 100% for 3 years, 95% for 3 years, then 90% for the final 4 years over a 10-year period. If we apply that percentage to the estimated increment here for the facility in Stuart, that equates to about $2.4 million in TIF rebate to the developer. So that's one starting point for your reference. Taking that same valuation, the 10.2 million, applying that to a second scenario, and I'll kind of rattle through these quickly because the framework and the layout is the same for each of them. A $2 million cap on a TIF rebate scenario reflects just a discussion starting point, certainly subject to negotiation with Ender and his attorney at this point, if the council is so willing. So it reflects, the $2 million cap reflects 35% TIF rebate for the first 10 years, 45% for years 11 through 18, and then 36% in year 19. That equates to $2 million TIF rebate. If, this is a big if, and throughout these scenarios, the city's, Jolly mentioned it, the city's existing TIF, your existing current Stuart Urban Renewal Area dollars are not assumed to be used here. So that those dollars are protected. This is a pure self-supporting TIF rebate proposal if the council is supportive. So just please consider that with each of the scenarios that we work through. Now, if you don't have to do this, but if the city, since we're doing a TIF cash flow, I modeled this assuming the city would capture sort of basically the inverse of what would be TIF rebated. If you captured it as TIF revenues, the city's dollar in TIF revenue over time is about $4.2 million. If you don't capture as much for TIF and let it fall to your base or general fund, then that enhances your tax base to fund operations. So that's a negotiating point as you work through the development agreement. And it's a question for capturing TIF. You can only use TIF to pay debt obligations or debt in your urban renewal area, or you can let it fall to your general fund. What we structure and certify for TIF debt each year, that determines how much your tax base each year gets used to TIF, used for TIF rebate or to pay bond issues. So that's $2 million. If we do a scenario that reflects $3 million of TIF rebate, that's 35% for 10 years, 50% for 11 through 20, and then 80% roughly the last 3 years. This reflects under House File 2472. The city in this scenario would remove that property and then add it back to your urban renewal area. So you'd get a new full 23 years. That's what's permitted under the legislation for new urban renewal areas. And you'd want to get, as we've talked about before, you'd want to get the TIF ordinance in place by January 1 to keep the 540 school uniform levy in the TIF collection calculation. Next scenario lays out TIF rebate of $3.5 million. That splits the revenue roughly 50-50 for the first 20 years, 80% to the developer the last 3 years. If you do a scenario that is, and this is leaning in the direction of this scenario that's on page 9 of 15, behind tab 1, leans in the direction of a scenario where Ender would be proposed to fund the infrastructure, the 2 traffic signals, and the south 8th sanitary sewer lining. TIF rebate of $4.5 million. That requires rebates to the developer of 80%, 70%, and 60% over that period of time. And then I think we've got one more here that I put together. And this is very much an estimate on my part, if the development is scaled back and the valuation in column E is 1/2 of the 10.2 million, and there's no TIF rebate to the developer. So no TIF rebate is assumed for city council review. In column R, in the city, if you were to capture it all as TIF, which of course you don't have to, the city's TIF revenue would be about $2.7 million on evaluation. That's roughly 1/2 of the 10.2 million that's estimated. Anything else that maybe is developed throughout the day, Jolly, in terms of discussions or?
So Chip and I had a quick conversation just on Senate File 2472, especially with this property. So the general fund levy, the new property tax levy restriction starting July 1, 2027, limits that to 2% revenue growth from year to year for cities, but you get to capture new construction growth on top of that. And so one thing we talked about is instead of putting this property in a TIF district, so currently it is in one, pulling it out and then having that essentially be new construction growth for property tax generation for general operations. So there's that scenario too that we can look at. But that's in essence if we're looking at the option where we're not providing direct rebate to the developer. So I just wanted to have all these options available. But again, the scenarios that we brought up, the $2 million cap, the $3 million cap, and the $4 million, all take into account, again, priority number 1, which is the 2 traffic signals that are required by the DOT's traffic study on the north and south end of the ramp, and then also the sewer relining works. So if the city's going to end up incurring it, about $1.3 million in debt obligation to kind of carry that forward.
That's principal and interest.
Principal and interest too. So just making sure the city's protected up front, but especially from an economic development side, just want to make people aware as when you're looking at retail activity, especially historically, we've seen the Quick Start, the Casey's, and also the Maverick gas station that did not involve direct rebate tied to the project. This one is projected to be about $2 million more than the Quick Start project. That one's around $8.7 million. But just wanted to have that picture as well as the risk of potential cannibalization with existing visitation in other areas, sales tax, potential hits to other businesses. But again, there are paths forward. We have the Webster City example with that one's a $1.2 million cap of the increment over 20 years, or over 10 years, sorry. But the example that we have using that same kind of scenario, there are ways for the municipality to kind of restrict and say it's a rebate up to a certain number. So it would be, for example, we have a $2 million cap, but that one protects the city to where even over the life of that TIF district, the 23 years, we'd be capturing $4.2 million, but still kind of incentivizing the project. So just wanted to start there. I know it's a lot to digest in the work session, but I think we can open up to questions from the council, and then at the end with the public too, but open for conversation.
Hey, Chip, regarding the traffic signals, didn't Forrest come up that there's a grant out there that would pay about 50% of that we could utilize?
I think there is. We haven't yet assumed that gets applied.
Okay.
But
it's possible. Okay, it's possible. What if we accept money like from the developer on that? Does that put that in jeopardy?
Boy, I don't have the answer to that.
You know, would we, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that works. But
That's
so, it's possible that that 1.3 won't be all the city, you know, we might have some sort of a grant or something on that, I don't know exactly how much, but.
I think you're talking the U-Step, if it's the U-Step grant, Forrest is reviewing that to make sure that the road would be covered, but I think because of its jurisdiction, he wasn't for certain if it would
Okay.
cover under the grant program. He's
But it's
reviewing it.
possible.
It's possible.
It's
yep.
possible, yeah, that's all, yeah, I'm not saying it's a done deal, so.
Anybody else? Any questions?
And Chip, again, with all of your analysis, you're just showing us what we can do, but you're not making any determination if this is in the best interest of the citizens of Stuart.
Absolutely not. No, these are scenarios.
Just
It's really
scenarios.
a policy decision for the council and city staff at this point. It's a nice, I'm gonna bring my hammer and nail next time to fix that. It's a nice increase to the city's tax base, that's understood. Then it's a question for the council, do you want the additional truck traffic? Do you want that to occur in Stewart? And that's really up to you. And then you have to come to terms on a negotiated development agreement with Mr. Singh and proceed from there. So I think Jolly's done a terrific job getting it moved to a head and to a discussion point, so kudos to you, so thank you.
So like I said, the two scenarios that are in there that take into account the infrastructure improvements, those protect the city. Again, there are ways for us to put minimum assessment evaluations in there to where developer has to hit $10.5 million before he can even access the rebate. So there are ways for us to protect ourselves, but the current TIF application that's going to be decided here at 6 p.m. is specific to, again, that 75% kind of threshold. So that is a little bit more difficult, I think, to stomach for the city, only because, again, it's gonna be difficult for us to be able to also pay for the infrastructure costs if you're giving the developer 75% rebate, the city's only capturing 25% over that 23-year life. So that's why we put together those examples where there's a cap at 2 million or a cap at 3 million, understanding that this project valuation is going to be higher than the Quick Star. So there's that added benefit. So it's a different kind of cost analysis between the two projects, and so it involves, again, the city being able to improve infrastructure in that corridor. We wouldn't be able to do it without the project valuation tied to this development, so wanted to keep that in mind as well as we move forward.
You might wonder where did the valuation number come from? So essentially that $10,270,000, that simply takes the valuation that Quick Star is assessed at per square foot. It's roughly $395. It's gone up since the January 126 assessment, but it takes that $395 times the 26,000 square foot proposed for the travel America. So that's where it came from.
Council, do you have any questions for Jolly or Chip?
I guess just a random question, Corey. Am I mistaken in remembering, did you throw out at some point a potential time frame when the DOT would be considering any work to be done on our bridge out there, or?
So that bridge won't get replaced. I know there's rumors going around saying that the bridge is going to get replaced. It is not getting replaced, it is getting redecked.
Redecked.
What it means by that is
Yeah.
they're gonna remove the concrete on top of the deck and put new, fresh concrete on it. So
Sure.
they're not widening it, they're not doing anything, it's just getting redecked. And that bid letting will happen of January of '27.
Okay, so that is
More than
fairly
likely,
recent.
it'll probably happen next year when they redeck that bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of what sort of impacts we could see with the increased truck traffic, especially the condition the bridge may be in currently, how fast that'll degrade that, or even once it is replaced, what that impact will have on its lifespan overall.
Sure.
That's things that we gotta keep in consideration too, so.
Yeah. And at that point, I think that'll be more of a DOT issue,
Correct,
but it is something to, take in consideration for sure, yeah.
But if they look at expanding the bridge, potentially, just throwing that out there, I mean, that does impact us in the end if we have to take that in consideration too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Anybody else have any questions? All right, at this time, we do have a handful of minutes here. I will open it up to the public. If anybody in the audience has any questions for Jolly, Chip, or Matt, now's the time to come up. I ask you come to the podium and just ask your question, and we can go from there. If there's any questions. Janet, come on up.
Can I get you guys to speak, especially, speak
Yep.
up a little bit so people can hear at home, because
Yeah.
it's hard
yeah.
even to hear in the back.
We gotta use our
Speak
outside,
right into the mic.
yeah, we gotta use outside voices.
Matt?
So one of the questions I have is to Chip, actually. A year or so ago, you guys had to go to the county because you maxed out your bonding, so you had to go to the county and ask them to use their bonding capacity. Oh,
There you go.
oh, okay. So how are we on that now?
You know, the city actually has, because the city's issued a lot of annual appropriation debt, the city oddly enough has a lot of legal debt capacity available because so much of it's annual appropriation. Where, like if you do $1 million bond issue, $100,000 in principal payments over 10 years, only $100,000 counts against the city's legal debt limit.
So they don't have to have the county sign it, it's all on them now with this project and everything?
If the council agrees to do any financing for it, yes, it would be the city only.
Good, good, that's a question that I
You bet.
have, because of stuff coming up, and we don't wanna use that debt capacity, like we got in trouble before.
Understood, you bet.
Is where I'm at with that. The other question that I had is, in listening to your meetings, in the budget hearing, you effectively raised property taxes on the citizens, like a lot of them 20%, that'll come this fall, because you didn't decrease your levy when the valuations all went up. So if people own property, that their valuation was reassessed this year, their taxes, a lot of them that I've had come in will go up probably 20% in the city. And so, and when I listen to your meetings, I hear all the time that you're issuing bonds for insurance, for police cars, for all this stuff that should be coming out of your general fund operating budget. Instead, you're issuing debt for them. So when you raise the property taxes on everybody this year, I'm assuming that's because you need the money in your general fund, your operating fund. And so my question is, why would you TIF this project to this level? Because that's gonna cut sincerely into what you guys are gonna get in your general fund. And we need that, I mean, I'm assuming you guys needed the money in your general fund is why you raised the taxes on people. So my question, when we TIF, that money's not going to go in your general fund for you guys to operate more. So I'm just bringing that up as a consequence of doing this TIF this much.
May I answer? So the city's levy rate stayed the same. It's roughly $15.50 per thousand. Because the city has so much TIF paid debt, a lot of it for the housing developments, through the June 30, 2029 fiscal year, the last thing I would do to recommend to the city, and I'll take full responsibility for this, they should not lower their levy.
And
Because they can't generate enough TIF revenue to pay that TIF paid debt.
And I
It doesn't
agree,
work.
I agree with you and with the new legislation, but what I'm saying here is that people are gonna take a 20% hit. The taxpayers are gonna take, well, not everybody, but that's, in looking at the people's valuations that have come to me, it's a 20% hit. And so you're gonna tell the residents of Stuart, take this 20% hit, and I'm gonna turn around and give $3 million back to these people that aren't from Eric. That's what I'm bringing up.
That's, I understand your point there, and one thing I just want to mention, am I loud enough? Hopefully. The residential rollback is in place to suppress your assessed valuation swings. So even if you see 20% growth in assessed values, the residential rollback is designed to limit your property tax
But it's
increase
not
each
gonna-
year.
It's not.
It's not, I can guarantee it's not a 20% increase.
50-some percent or something, it's not gonna, when I see what people's taxes went up for valuations, it's high.
Yep, and I'd like to see those examples and kind of walk through, how the rollback system works, so. but-
I used to be a county auditor, so I know how the rollback system works, but yeah, But yeah, that's what you guys are coming up against, that people are gonna say, you raised my taxes, and then you're gonna get these guys. I'm just bringing up.
Here's one thing that might help. The city, under Senate File 2472, city can't do bond issues anymore for insurance. That
Oh.
authority is gone.
Oh,
So
oh,
we did a bond issue for insurance. Why does the city do that? Because it lowers the levy rate, because they get to apply the debt levy toward the TIF valuation as well as the base. You are well aware of that.
yes.
It does lower the levy rate about $2. So it's strange, I grant that.
But then
It's
it
not-
takes from the other taxing
It does.
entities,
It
so they
certainly
raise
does.
their levy to cover what you're not. So it's, for the taxpayers, it's pretty much the same, you know.
I understand.
I'm just here trying to protect the
bet.
taxpayers because it is a very complicated thing and people are gonna get hit and they're gonna be mad when they see this kind of money going to, you know, private. So, and you're already gonna have, how much did you say, 1.3, 1 point for the infrastructure?
That's principal and interest if the council approves that.
For you guys, it's your responsibility, no matter what, you know, for the infrastructure. So that's already gonna be increased debt on you. So I just wanted to bring up those things.
We appreciate your questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming up. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Mr. Sherman.
So I'm just gonna add, when you talk about the rollback, I can tell you from 2022, my property taxes gone up about 35%. Because I had a huge increase, and that rollback, it only takes into account an average. So somebody that gets a big assessment change, it's gonna be possibly 20%. Like what mine was back in, I think, 22. I think just that 1 year, my taxes went up probably 25% in that 1 year. Even though the rollback dropped down to like 46%, or whatever it was, I still had that increase. So what she's talking about is those people who got a big jump this year, it's gonna be a big jump still. And when we bring in all this new revenue, it would be nice to be able to lower our levy. And for me, a lot of our projects we've done in the past, especially ones that don't generate any revenue, I have a real problem with those. And some, I think residential, I think we've gone a little too high on things, because they don't pay back like, a project like this pays back about almost twice as fast as the residential. So, anyway, it's still gonna be a big tax hit.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Anybody else? Any question? Good questions. I appreciate the engagement from the audience, so Mrs. Dixon, come on back up.
One more thing that's been brought up before in the meeting, you asked about the school. We do get backfilled for the school, but we don't get 100% backfill. So just to get backfilled to 5.4 or whatever, the basic, but you don't get 100% backfill. So when you tip all this stuff, you are taking everything.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I like what you all brought up about the taxes, you know, because I think sometimes we just focus on taxes and stuff, you know, but everybody out there is paying increased in everything. You know, food, gas, insurance on their houses. I've heard scuttlebutt that we may be losing a congregate meals here. So that's gonna affect the citizens in this town quite a bit. And then I sit around and I ask myself, why do we give people money, my neighbor's money, to pay somebody else's bills? I know we've done it in the downtown area. We've made some pretty good investments here with the Wombulge, you know. We're growing the city that way. We've brought businesses downtown and helped, you know, small businesses out that maybe couldn't handle it. I don't know if anybody else up here has had any positive feedback from the community saying, do this, give our tax money away. I have not. I've had people come up and ask me, you're not gonna do this, are you? And I tell them my opinion. I think I made it kind of clear the last meeting we were at, where I stand on this. And we keep going round and round, trying to figure out different scenarios. I don't know, an analogy is, you're trying to dress up a poop sandwich, and then you're gonna ask your neighbor, what size of a bite of that sandwich do you want to take? And I don't care how big you or fancy you make it, it's just not, for me, the right thing to pass on to our citizens. When, if we didn't do anything, and we use that TIF money for infrastructure projects, because we got some infrastructure projects coming up. Flagpole Road's gonna cost a lot of money. I think we had $3 million set for that. I don't think that's gonna be the cost anymore. I think it's gonna be higher. Just taking care of our city buildings, sewer, water treatment. We talked about this at the last meeting. I've seen different interviews online with investors that are putting up data centers. And they're getting questions, why should the taxpayers invest this money? Well, the only reason that the investor came back was, well, if they don't, they won't get a project. They won't build there. My personal view is, if you can't build using your own money, then don't build. Don't come in and ask our taxpayers to fund this. I'm not against anything being built. That's not it. But it's, why are we looking at giving money? Can somebody up here tell me why we would do that? What would our citizens directly benefit from doing that?
So, just,
Yeah, go
just so
go
we're on
ahead.
the same page, looking at our existing debt obligations, we wouldn't be able to pay for those traffic signal improvements without the valuation generated by this specific project.
Okay, but does that involve giving them money?
That's the other side of it too.
Yeah.
Where are you at on that?
Yeah.
Again,
That's what I'm getting at, 'cause
those are the, again, the three scenarios are designed. So there's the one where there's no rebate to the developer. So this is just really guiding the council to ensure that we're protected to pay for the infrastructure projects. Because with this development, DOT is basically requiring the two traffic signals on the north and south end. And then the sewer relining is separate, but added into the overall project, about $900,000. And so that's really what the scenarios are really designed to be. So the council can make that decision, but here in the next, so starting at 6 PM, the next council meeting, the TIF application is asking or requesting $4.2 million over 20 years. So if that's the council's direction to maybe decline the current application, we can still continue the conversations with the developer, but you're making the decision, obviously, to move in a different direction with that, just on the application. We can still kind of move forward with negotiations, is the main thing.
Anybody else? All right. Well, that will conclude the work session. Appreciate everybody. Involvement, Joey, your hard work. Chip, your hard work. Matt, your hard work. Appreciate the information from you three. And with that, we'll adjourn until the council meeting.